Video games are some of the most intentionally crafted pieces of interactive media in the entire world. I know it's not a competition between all of the art forms and which one is harder, except I'm lying because it is, and video games win. They are the hardest. Welcome guys, my name is Brandon and my wife and I make videos about all things game dev. We hope you enjoy. When you're playing a game, it's so easy to take for granted what you're seeing on the screen. But with literally every single thing you see on screen, even just one still of one single frame from a game, there were probably dozens of decisions that needed to be made just for that one frame that you're seeing. This is from Hades, and there is a lot going on here. Obviously, I attacked the enemy, but look how far away he is from the damage effect. That's a design choice to make you feel powerful. He has really good reach with that sword, but if they had made the damage effect that large, it would have taken up way too much screen space, so they kept it smaller. Look at the stylized lighting around the tip of the sword that they cast onto the floor. This again conveys power. Look at these little fire trails that are left behind by the player's feet. You are the son of Hades in this game, and this little detail is just something to remind you of that. How about level design? If I keep my eyes on the player, I notice that even in my peripheral vision, my eyes are drawn towards this purple fire and this light over here. And that is an exit, and it's the way forward in the game. You will instinctively know to go towards that doorway because you were drawn there. Let's talk about UI for a second. In this game, my eyes are trained to look to the bottom left of the screen. Everything crucial for your survival is down there. Health, number of ranged attacks you can use, and the number of revives you have available. When I'm in the middle of combat in this game, I can take one very quick glance down there and know everything that I need to know, and I can plan accordingly because of that. Any upgrades you have are displayed on the left, quests or current tasks are at the top, and I'm a little embarrassed to admit I actually never noticed these icons when I was playing the game to the bottom right of the screen over here. But again, that just kind of goes to show that my eyes were trained in this game to look to the bottom left for the most crucial information. And all together, they're nicely displayed on the edges of the screen so that it's all there available for you, but it's not blocking your view either. Nothing in this scene that you are seeing is random. Nothing is without purpose. Now that's a lot of information to take in just from one frame of the game, but games generally run at 60 frames per second, and this game will keep you playing for hours because it's really, really hard to stop. So this kind of begs the question, how in the hell do you plan and design a video game by yourself or with a small team when there are so many decisions that need to be made and every decision you make affects some other aspect of the game? Now, I don't know how the creators of Hades planned and designed their game, but I can tell you how my wife and I planned and are still kind of planning our 90-day challenge game, Samurado. So first off, the truth. I know there has been very little information about this game coming out, but in our Discord, some people who are much smarter than me suggested that I do a video talking about the design process. Earlier on, I promised that we'd be doing devlogs and all kinds of updates for this game, and there is a devlog in the works.
Yes!
But the truth is, I'm just having a little bit of a hard time balancing the workload of pumping out content for this channel as well as creating this game at the same time. It's pretty easy for me to get kind of bogged down in my work and just crank out stuff for Samurado, crank out videos for this channel, and just kind of forget what kind of content you guys want from this channel in the first place. So honestly, that was an oversight on my part, and I owe all of you an apology for that. I'm sorry. I was not keeping you in the dark on purpose. That being said, if you don't want to have to wait around for devlogs and YouTube updates and things like that, and you want to get your hands dirty and play alpha builds of the game and get exclusive content updates for Samurado, then consider supporting us on Patreon because you will be helping out this channel immensely. Thank you so much. So this process so far has been a chaos fest of rushed decisions. It is honestly way too much work to do in 90 days, and because we are crazy or a little bit dumb, or maybe both, we're still also releasing 2 videos a week while we're doing this. So the actual planning for this game has not really been all that meticulous or harmonic or anything like that. It has been 15% planning and about 200 quadrillion% flying by the seat of our pants. Now, I don't necessarily think that that's a bad thing though. On day 1, Nikki and I put our heads together for like an hour or two with our whiteboard and thought up some high-level ideas for the game. And that was mainly, what do we want this game to be? Now, luckily, a few days before all of this, I remembered something that I said to you guys on this channel, and I really don't like contradicting myself. And that thought was bugging me because when we decided we were going to do a 90-day game, roguelike is what came up right away, and I don't want to be a hypocrite. Now, luckily, I have logged many hours in Enter the Gungeon. I suck at it so hard, so it's hard for me to enjoy it. I don't think I've gotten past floor 3 free actually. But there was something to it because I kept coming back and I kept playing it. But I had heard about Hades and I knew that that was a roguelike game and I had heard that it was really good. So I decided to buy myself that game and try it out. And as soon as I played that game, the ideas just exploded into existence. This video should totally be sponsored by Supergiant Games because you should totally go buy that game. It is absolutely amazing. Just play it with a controller. It's so much easier. But when I played Hades, I literally fell in love with that game. It is now without a doubt one of my all-time favorite games. And through sheer coincidence, Nikki had also bought me a copy of Cult of the Lamb back in Valentine's Day, but it was a physical copy and it took a really long time to get here. And it actually arrived right around this time as well. And it's not just a roguelike game. There are simulation elements in there, but there are strong roguelike elements in that game. It's very, very interesting. And I really like that game as well. So it is official. I do like some games in this genre, which is great because that is what Samurado is. And I took a lot of inspiration from Hades in the design process of Samurado. So we decided that it would be a roguelike very, very early on before we even started playing the game. Next, we talked about who our audience was for this game, and we planned our core game loop around that audience. We really tried to prioritize fun while also keeping marketability in mind as well. And if you're going to get anything down on paper before you actually sit down and start working on a game, it's what is the core game loop and who is going to be playing your game? Who are your players and what are they actually doing when they play the game? What keeps them coming back? My opinion on this is that if you know the answer to that question, if you know what the structure of your game will look like, then all of the hundreds and the thousands of little micro decisions that need to be made along the way while you're making your game, they're going to fall into place so much easier. And I'll give you a little example. Samurado is built for speed. Without giving too much away, you are highly, highly incentivized to get through this game as quick as you can. You are rewarded for doing so. And because of that reward, you are going to feel a certain pressure to get things done within a certain time frame. It's not something lame like a timer, by the way. It's something cooler. Hopefully, I haven't actually made it yet, but I know exactly what I want it to be, so we'll see how it turns out. By the way, really quick, be sure to wishlist the game if you haven't already. You are not going to have to wait years and years for this to release. This is going to be coming out soon, and I cannot wait for you all to play it. So speed, keep that in mind, all right? So the other day, my daughter was playing this game, and she looked at me and she was like, "Daddy, I think the enemies need health bars." And I was just like, holy, she's right. If time is something that you are constantly racing against, and you have to kill enemies, which you do in this game, you're actually locked in each room until you clear all the enemies out, then how are you supposed to know how well you're doing if you don't know how close you are to killing the enemies? You can only know that if you have a health bar. That is information that the players need to have in order to gauge their progress. And if I give them that information, that will hopefully result in more pressure, the good kind, and make the experience more enjoyable for everyone. And hopefully it also makes things feel more fair because it takes a lot of the guesswork out of it. A game like Hollow Knight, for instance, the enemies don't necessarily need health bars. There's no rush in that game. You're not even forced to fight enemies that you don't want to fight. So the core design decision of make players want to play the game fast suddenly made a tiny decision like should the enemies have health bars very, very clear and easy. Now, as for the rest, we decided to borrow a lot of elements from both Enter the Gungeon and Hades because a core part of those games is there are temporary upgrades and permanent upgrades. The temporary upgrades that you get on each run is what determines the luck of that run. Sometimes you get awesome stuff and sometimes you get crappy stuff. The permanent upgrades are obviously permanent, so they will help you get just a little bit further on your next run. Like in Hades, for instance, when I got the permanent upgrade that actually heals you for a few health points every time you enter a new room, that helped me out immensely, especially when I was new. I was able to get a little bit further after I got that upgrade. So I'm working on implementing upgrades for this game this week, actually, and I realized that I haven't actually specifically planned what those upgrades should be yet. And there's a lot of them. There need to be temporary ones and permanent ones. And I was kind of kicking myself for not having a pre-made list of stuff to just make and throw into the game. But honestly, in retrospect, I think that we did just the right amount of planning for this system. I knew from the very beginning that every single stat that the player had in the game might be upgradable from some sort of upgrade. Player speed, damage, attack radius, max health, can you deflect projectiles, knockback amount, etc., etc., everything like that. So despite not knowing exactly what every single upgrade was going to be when I started making the player character, I designed him and all of his stats around this idea and made it very easy to change them later on. So now when I'm doing my work this week, it's going to be very, very easy to make those changes. So that's been kind of our planning and design process so far. Just enough high-level planning while building the specifics of the game as flexible and as loosely coupled as possible so that it's very easy to make changes later on if necessary. Now that I'm actually building the upgrade system, it's going to make my work so much easier this week because I already built it with that in mind. I want to reiterate that this is a 90-day challenge, so we are saving ourselves time wherever possible, and that includes planning. We planned Veil of Maya, for instance, much more meticulously than this game. We have a whole design document for that game, but this game, we're kind of just going with the flow a little bit. So I think what works for you is highly going to depend on your time constraints and what genre your game is. How would you plan your game, or how are you planning your game? Let me know in the comments down below, because maybe we could have saved ourselves time if we had made a game design document first for this game. Or maybe you think it's better to stay more flexible. Let me know what you think. Bye, guys. I want to give a very special thank you to our Hall of Fame patrons, Jakob Yondak, Zandra Kessler, Darren Preen, Throbbing Wind, Fontaine Waite, and Couch, as well as our early access patrons, Zyoma, Ken Waite, and Mason Crow. If you choose to support us on Patreon, you can get early access to all our YouTube videos, monthly alpha builds, and more.